Hi, Dallas. Let me try to walk you through what we do with the direct neurofeedback here at my office and what it would look like with athletes out there in Arizona. The first thing that we would do is we start to make this assessment. We get an intake history, and that's usually about an hour of talking to people and making conversation with them, asking them questions about their performance now and their performance college, high school, elementary school, what things are chronic conditions, what things are recent changes, recent problems that have come. Believing that, all right, so the idea is we all have this potential, and there's a reason why our performance isn't meeting up to our potential. So the formula is potential minus interference equals performance. And that interference can come from a variety of sources. It can be everything from a coach or a parent in the stands for the Little League game where the kid's more focused on the adult talking to him than on the pitch that's coming to him. Or it can be as severe as traumatic brain injury, concussion, so on. That interference. So you have the potential for performance minus the interference, what's in the way, and you get your actual performance. So that sort of is the guiding principle and everything that it is that we want to find out. So we have about a 15-page form that we work through what's going on cognitively, what's going on physically, what medications are people taking, and so on. So that kind of a medical history. Second thing we want to do is define the goals. What is it that we're going to be working on? This is important to define goals because it could be the goal is we've got to repair something that's broken. Somebody's had a traumatic brain injury and there's been some shearing or some cells have died, or it could be a concussion, whatever that might be. Or it could be a matter of just the person needs greater clarity and greater focus, greater ability to concentrate, or it could be we want to optimize brain performance for a businessman or an executive or an athlete. So those are different goals and different treatment protocols for those. We have then we administer two different computerized assessment tools. One is the TOVA, which I have worked with for like 30 years, and it is a go, no go, yes, no kind of task, very simple task, but it measures cognitive function, particularly frontal lobe function, so attention, reaction time to a stimulus, impulse control, and so on. So it's the classic ADHD computerized assessment tool, but it's also good for anything central nervous system related, and it's re-administrable. We can administer it 20 times to somebody. There's no practice effect to it. So you can use it to track progress. You can use it to track the impact of medication on the brain. For instance, with ADHD, get a baseline. If the person scores out of the normal ranges, we get that score as a baseline score. We can then administer, say, 10 milligrams of short-acting Ritalin, and an hour and a half later, sit them down, retake the test, and any change that we see there tells us how well a person responds to that particular dose of medication. Is the person a responder or not? And if a person is not a responder to the medication, you might as well just know it at that moment. So you don't have to try it for 3 months. You can just find out by giving another TOVA test. The second tool that we use is from Cambridge Brain Sciences out of Toronto, Canada, and it takes 12 brain assessment tools that are pretty classic in the field of psychology and has gamified them, turned them into just short little games you can do on your computer, and it measures cognitive performance. It looks for things both where somebody might have an injury or a problem, where in their brain there might be a problem, the location, but also function. It's looking for systems that sometimes we have a system that's not working at full speed. So I get the reports from them. This is a report from there we go. A friend of mine that is a veteran and suffered 3 to 4 really significant head injuries in his life, from auto accidents to just banging his head, falling down at work, stuff like that. So anyway, in the military, has non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and receives cancer treatment for it. So it tells us things like, did he understand the instructions? In this particular case, he didn't understand the instructions, so we have to re-administer that part. Same guy, and here we see that he scored in the 95th percentile, or 90th something percentile. I mean, he's off the hook good at that cognitive task, and down here he's like 0. So he can do some things really well, and because of his head injury, other things not at all. But what the assessment does, first it looks at these 12 things, and we can correlate each of the tests with things like, hey, these are the 6 or 8 that we would give for post-traumatic stress disorder. These are the 6 or 8 we do for ADHD. These are the different ones we'd use, maybe 4 or 5 for depression or anxiety. And so we can kind of line them up that way, but we can re-administer the test. So let me give you an example of that. So this is a young man that I just saw a little bit ago. And in his scores, for example, we've given him 3 of these tests, and we can track progress. He started here, and then with treatment, we see improvements, right? So we see changes in performance. And he might get administered, I don't know, 6 or 8 of these, but we can track improvements in all these. It's a good tool for that. So that's from Cambridge Brain Sciences out of Toronto, Canada. And then we use the direct neurofeedback. So let me show that to you. Once we kind of have a baseline of performance, both paper and pencil wise, but also from these assessment tools, the TOVA, the Cambridge Brain Sciences tools. So then we can start treatment. Oh, and before I go on, let me just also say that the TOVA test has to be administered in my office on my computer or with a laptop that I could provide. And the Cambridge Brain Sciences tools, they can be done at home on a desktop. In fact, I sent you a link to do it yourself so you can get an idea of it. It can be done on a desktop, a laptop, just cannot be done on a cell phone. So it's very portable, easy to do. It's like, hey, Saturday morning I'm going to send you this link, and then just do these things, and then we can track progress with that. So that's the good thing about those assessment tools. So then the direct neurofeedback, I use this, I can do it on my laptop, or I can do it here on my desktop. And the software is pretty high-tech stuff. And then this amplifier right here is costs more than my car's. And then we use these wires. See, I just gave a session, and the wires will attach to the person's head. And typically what we do is we're going to put one here in the front forehead, another on the right side forehead, left side forehead, and then on the earlobes, reference wires. So all that means is this over here picks up all the electricity in the room. This picks up all the electricity in the room plus the brain waves underneath the scalp and the skull. So we subtract this from this, and we get the brain waves. So that's how we do that. So first thing, we hook them up, and we see this is an impedance meter. We check to make sure that they're not red, but they get into the green zone when we hook people up and have a good connection. And then we have different protocols that we can use, and they can run from a mild protocol to something that's pretty strong and pretty vigorous. So by choosing the protocols, different people react to different protocols. I have a head injury college student, went through the windshield of a car in an auto accident, And we warm him up with the mild ones, but he notices the difference when we get to the strong protocols. And he can say, wow, that's making a difference, and I feel more calm, more focused, more relaxed, more ambitious, more whatever, more with it. Part of the mystery here is that this is Clarity Direct Neurofeedback, and it's all the same technology and pretty much the same software with just minor changes. It's like 98% the same as the company called High Performance Neurofeedback, another company out of Temecula called IASIS Microcurrent Neurofeedback, and this is Clarity Direct Neurofeedback. Same box, same stuff. All the equipment comes from the same guy. So it's pretty much all the same, no matter what name it goes under. It's different from what we would call traditional neurofeedback, in that in traditional neurofeedback, it's a learned process. So it may take 15 sessions just for the brain to learn how to make this thing go, how the brain can change, optimize performance, but change, be different. And this Clarity Direct Neurofeedback, this kind of direct neurofeedback, takes learning out of it. It's just my client's brain talks to my computer through this amplifier. It talks back to my client's brain dozens and dozens of times every second. And there's a very mild current, very mild signal that goes back to my client's brain. It's a little faster, a little bit slower than the dominant brainwave at any given moment. And so it unsticks the brain, it resets the brain, allows the brain to just optimize and be more flexible in the way it performs. And the energy, mild, it's like 500 times less than the energy coming off my cell phone. That energy is still enough to stimulate the brain kind of throughout the entire brain. So we get brain changes, growth, improvements in performance, just energy throughout the brain. And no learning takes place. It's just sit in the chair, listen to some music, and keep your eyes open, and here we go. And it's between the person's brain, my computer, and back to their brain. And it's amazing. It cuts the time to reach treatment goals by half, maybe by 2/3 over traditional neurofeedback. So in general, central nervous system issues like anxiety, depression, maybe ADHD, those kinds of things will typically take about 20 sessions, and people will notice a change very, very quickly, usually by the first session. Maybe by the second session, people notice, this is different. My brain is working different. It's not necessarily working better, but it's working different. Now, what I mean by that is that sometimes in the first session we don't give enough stimulation, sometimes we give too much stimulation, but people know something's happening. So the second session we can certainly dial it in, and then we start to make really good progress. In fact, let me read you something that somebody just wrote me. No, never mind, Dal. Can't do it. It's on my phone, and I'm making the video with my phone. But I have somebody who has just been off the hook with impulse control, ADHD, hyperactivity, can't focus, whatever. And we've done 4 of these treatment sessions, and they're just ecstatic about it, how it calms them down, slows down their world, they're able to focus, they're more flexible with thinking, they're not stuck in these negative thoughts. They are just performing way, way better 4 sessions. But it doesn't last. See, the first few sessions will last for 12 to 24 hours. That's all. And then they go back kind of to baseline, maybe a little bit better than how they started. But each then progressive session, the benefits will last longer until finally, somewhere between 10 and 20 sessions, it'll just stick. That's the new normal now. So 20 sessions is thought to be sort of the average for anything that you bring into the office. And I can do 1 or 2 sessions a week pretty easily. Each session lasts 30 to 45 minutes at the most. Could be done in 30 minutes usually. Now, something like a traumatic brain injury, that may take more than 20 sessions because something's sheared or something's broken or something got smashed, and things that are dead, you don't bring them back, but we can help stimulate the brain in a way where it creates new neural connections. And that's this really fascinating thing to see, this neurogenesis that can take place, but it takes longer. So somebody with a traumatic brain injury, let's say we're talking about athletes, talking about a retired NFL player, a number of small head bangs through high school, college, professional sports. They say that in high school, typically 40 bangs to the head every practice and every game. College, 50 bangs to the head every practice, every game. Professional football, 60 bangs to the head every practice, every game. And then plus we're talking about concussions. That's a separate category from these small bangs to the head, or a traumatic brain injury, which might be from really a tremendous hit. This is where they talk about guys who, they get knocked out in the game, they go to the wrong huddle, they take them to the sideline, and the guy, comes back to it on Tuesday or Wednesday. They figure out, what happened to the game. So that kind of a significant head injury, auto accident, going through a windshield, whatever that might be. So those will just simply take more sessions, more work. That may be kind of more indefinite. But what we want to avoid is people who have suffered these traumatic head injuries, and by the time they're 45, 50 years old, they have this dementia that they can't find their way home from the grocery store. They don't remember their kids' or grandkids' names. We want to avoid that. Absolutely. We can talk about nutrition also with people, by the way. That's very important. I'm just a fan of the keto diet because it's a high-fat diet. Anything that's high-fat, the brain is going to like that. And things like MCT oil and coconut oil can be very helpful with brain function. Even people with dementias, it can be helpful for them. So talk about nutritional things. And I think anything that's really, really clean, from keto to vegan, vegetarian, vegan eating, if it's clean eating, the brain likes that. Certainly people are going to have to stop doing things like alcohol, any kind of illicit drug, a number of things that people do pretty routinely that are just bad for the brain. So if there's some kind of a head injury, some kind of trauma to the brain, just has to go, has to stop. So anyway, there you go. That's the treatment protocol, and we can then re-administer those CBS tests, the Cambridge Brain Sciences assessments, as often as we want. The TOVA we can administer as often as we want. Typically, I do the CBS assessments once a month, and the TOVA every 3 months. That's kind of how I follow the baseline to see what's happening, see how much improvement that we're making. So, hope this is helpful. Talk to you later.